Hi everybody, how we doing? Matt from Hannah Fields, back with my monthly market garden update for the month of April. We're at the end of April, which means we are well and truly into spring, and we are seriously getting underway down here. We've got lots of first plantings in the ground, first plantings ready to go in, summer crops just on the cusp of being planted, and lots of other things moving and shaking in the growing space. So let's take a little gander round and see how we're shaping up this end of April. I'm going to start on the two beds behind me, the main bed and the further bed, and I'll take you down to the further bed first and give you a great example of a crop you can grow for a snatch crop in mid to early spring, and it is of course spinach. This is Matador spinach. We sowed this in the second week of Feb, planted it out third week of March, and now we're about to harvest it, and we'll get a good 3 to 4 weeks of harvesting out of this spinach, essentially a snatch crop before we put our main crop of kale in here. So this bed has pretty much been ready to go since January. We didn't plan on using it until we get into, you know, sort of the midpoint in May, so it gives you a chance to get a cheeky crop in. And like I say, in this case, spinach. This is true spinach as opposed to perpetual spinach. So true spinach, you need to be planting early spring, late winter, or the other side of the summer when you get into September, because it flowers during late spring and into summer. Another great example of a spring vegetable is Derby Day cabbages. Now these are always the first cabbage that I sow, again in mid-Feb, plant out third to fourth week in March, and they're progressing lovely. As you can see, they're a quick growing crop as well, and they're really tasty. They're kind of that sweet stroke, sort of pointy, sort of cabbage tasting variety, if you will, and yeah, they're a great delight. And these crop normally as we get into June. I keep the covers on to protect them from wind and what have you, and obviously, you know, they're a brassica, so you know they're prone to bird damage and things like that, and just generally keeping the warmth in, because we're still having cold nights here, even though we've, you know, been having mid to high teens of lovely sunshine over the last week. We've had nights going down to 0 and 1, so that helps trap the heat in. And I always recommend, if you've got birds, keeping your crops covered, especially your brassicas. And another crop that we're sort of looking after in the same way is our beetroots, and these are flying now. As you can see, this is our main crop of beetroot again. It'll start cropping end of May, early June. And this is where we did potatoes last year, and I keep getting a cheeky potato popping up here and there, and yeah, I always find that quite fun. I just leave them in. So yeah, another great example of a crop that you sow sort of mid-Feb, and you enjoy as you get into that latter part of spring, early summer. I always start my main crop carrots under sort of a poly sort of cover sheeting like this, essentially creating like a mini polytunnel. And I direct sow them as we get to around sort of spring equinox, and then water them up and grow them under here. And as you can see, they're doing great. And what I'll do is, when I do my first thinning out over the next week or two, I'll then put some mesh net over them to protect them from carrot root fly. We didn't really get it down here last year, we're quite fortunate, but there's always that risk, and it's always good to have your covers on in some way. Under this sheeting here, it's simply potatoes, and they're just starting to pop up now. They don't take long. This is literally to trap in all this wonderful sunshine, and I'll just find them for you. I have seen them already today, there we go. So as you can see there, a nice potato coming up, and again I will put some form of cover over these just to protect them if we have any cold nights, because they can get frost bitten, the edge of the leaves can, but this is just acting again like a little bit of a greenhouse and keeping it warm. So yeah, some great examples there of vegetables that you could be sowing, planting out and enjoying as you get into the latter part of spring. And they're all sort of cold tolerant, most of them crops as well, so even if it does drop to below 0, you know, they're not going to kill them or anything. It's gonna, you know, they can withstand it. So the kind of crops you grow at this time of year are crops that, you know, they're not like loving plants are not like, you know, gonna die if it gets frosty. So something to consider when you're planning what you're going to grow. polytunnel, a lot of stuff here is sort of rising up and going to seed, or has done, and there's a bit of a change going to occur in here over the next sort of couple of weeks. Mainly next week, you know, a lot of this stuff will be out. We'll be dressing it with a couple of inches of homemade compost and getting our canes out and what have you for our tomatoes, which are at our greenhouse at home. And to be fair, they're nearly enough ready to go in. I need to just check the last frost dates this year, just to make sure that if I do put them out a little bit earlier than planned, we're not going to have any issues to deal with. What can I show you? Yeah, everything is growing quite rapidly. So these are all going to seed now, our kale. So we've been harvesting them and then chopping the sort of flowers off as we go because we don't need them. Our lettuces are pretty much fully hearted now. So these are going to be sold and harvested. Spring onions are continuing to crop. We're just pulling them out as we sell them or need them. And radishes, I always do a quick cheeky crop of radishes inside. And again, we've been harvesting these. And yeah, they're a delight. French breakfast are the variety that we grow. And they're quick growing and delicious. And it's always a good sign of spring. And you know it's the growing season when these are ready, because they're the first crop you sow and the first crop you harvest if you decide to grow them. Yeah, what else has been going on? Coriander, obviously this has just gone bonkers now, rising up, wanting to go to seed. Probably won't be saving this, if I'm honest. I'll harvest the coriander off, I'll freeze it, which is a great thing to do. I always recommend, if you've got, you know, herbs that are not going to be used in the same space and you need the space for something else, just, you know, de-leaf your plant and freeze your herbs, and when you need some coriander when it's out of season, you've got access to it. So always freeze the stuff that you're going to pull out. Another example of something I always do at this time of year is seed saving. So these are our pak choi that were in this sort of area here. I save one, let it go to flower, let it go to seed. I tie it up, it's out of the way, it's not going to interfere with anything, and I'll save these pak choi seeds and sow them again in September. More examples of things rising up. So our rainbow chard, that's rising up now. So all these things have been in here since mid-October. They've been feeding us over the winter, early spring. And like I say, in a couple of weeks, this will be full of tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, that kind of thing. Transitioning over into summer crops, which is pretty much what this time of the year is all about. And in our main poly, sorry, not our main poly, our second poly, this is sort of similar stuff as to the other polytunnel, really, although we do have some extra plantings in here. So I've got our first crop of spring onions down here. I plant them in here just because it gives them a little bit of a head start, and a couple of rows of carrots just to get a harvest maybe a couple of weeks earlier than our outdoor carrots. And speaking of carrots, I've decided to let this batch over here go to seed. I want to try and harvest carrot seed, which is something I've never done before. So I don't need this space. So it's sort of a metre square of carrots here, and I'll just let them hopefully generate some flower and give us some seeds. The grapevine is coming alive now. You know, it's getting into sort of mid to late spring when the grapevine starts to grow again, and this will all be dangling full of lovely grapes as we get into the latter part of summer. Similar crops in here really, so it's going to be mainly sort of peppers and stuff, and we'll have some tomatoes knocking about as well. I always do peas inside for shoots and an early crop, and as you can see on our fencing here, the peas are growing nicely. They're, you know, near enough 3/4 to a metre, and I look forward to harvesting some peas as we get into the next sort of month or so. Okay, take you down here, and this is our fruiting area, and it certainly comes alive at this time of year. We're loving all this sunshine, so we've got lots of different varieties of raspberries and currants which are starting to form now, and it just gives you a beautiful delight of early summer vegetables, summer fruits. So I've got vegetables on my mind, as you can imagine, constantly. So yeah, the fruit area does really, really well, and what I tend to do is net this up and create sort of like a walk-in net cage, because if you've got soft fruit, birds will go for it. So if you want to eat it yourself, protect it. That's what I say. Herb beds coming alive now. So golden oregano, sage, thyme, tarragon, chives. These are all things that come back year on year. So something to consider when you're setting up a herb bed. Go for things that are annual and perennial. So things that are you know, things that you have to sow every year are things like parsley, and your soft herbs like coriander and basil. You know, these are things that you'll be filling in sort of an established bed like this with, you know, in the gaps, and having your hardy herbs be here year on year. So yeah, looking wonderful. Herbs, always recommend growing them because, you know, not only do they go well with everything that you cook, they're a great scent in the garden, and a lot of them detract, you know, pests as well. So something to consider. This is our sort of salad bed, if you will, and it's pretty much ready now, I think. Well, ready to be, you know, first pickings and all that. I'll just have a quick look. I've not looked for a few days, so as you can see, looking fabulous. So this will be salad all year pretty much. Again, just keeping it's a bit windy today, just keeping the weather off and protecting it obviously from birds, because sometimes they do have a nibble on lettuce, not all the time, but they like to here and there. And here's another little cheeky area that we created, if you will. So we had some leftover strawberry plants and thought we'd put these in the ground here. We used to have artichokes here, they weren't doing very well, so we took them out and using this space differently. So yeah, these strawberries are starting to flower now, so I'll enjoy these in a couple of months' time, I'm sure. The pond bed is pretty much where I'm going to finish this video, well, in this area certainly. And just an example of how well the garlic's done this year. We've got garlic indoors and outdoors. I forgot to show you that in the polytunnel, but I think I've shown it you on a previous video. So doing really well. It's that last sort of bout of growth now before it starts to harvest in June, so it'll be giving it some. And what I've done is I've left gaps every metre in our garlic bed, if you can see. This is where I'm going to be putting courgette plants. So I always like to plan ahead, and I'll leave gaps like this in my beds ready to receive the second crops quite frequently, and it's something I do just to save time really, so I'm not having to pull stuff out and then plant a new vegetable into plant. So something to consider. So like I say, you know, these gaps will be having courgettes in pretty soon really, in the next sort of month or so, while the garlic is still sort of hardening and bulbing up. So just having that overlap saves you some time. And the fencing's up ready to receive runner beans, which I'll be sowing normally the first week in May. I sow our runner beans, and then week 3 I tend to get them out. They grow so quickly, within a couple of weeks you can plant them out. And I'll probably be doing some French beans and some other stuff down in this area here. And just another quick example of seed saving. So these are a bunch of spring onions, and I'm leaving them in to go to seed. Never done it before, so I've done a bit of research and spoke to all the growers how they do it, and I'm just going to let these go to seed and hopefully give us some spring onion seed going forward. And yeah, every year I try and do that, so 1 or 2 extra crops per year, seed saving. So at some point in time we get to a point where most of our seeds are saved. Finally, our rhubarb, and this is starting to go for it now. We planted this in here last year, we grew it from seed, didn't pick it the first year, and I'm probably going to pick some this year, so that'd be quite nice. We've waited a couple of years for the rhubarb, so it's always a great addition to the growing space. That's pretty much it, I think. I'm sure I've missed some stuff out, but just thought I'd give you a quick update on the growing space this April. I hope you found this video useful. Please feel free to like, share and subscribe to this channel, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Lots of love, take care.